Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for the new R-rated Hulu film Vacation Friends, starring John Cena and Lil Rel Howery. Before we get started, I do want to welcome you to Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. Please consider subscribing down below or even clicking that little bell, and you can get all the notifications for my new videos. I put several up every week, sometimes every day there's a new video, but a lot of movie reviews, TV reviews, and that sort of thing. And click that like button down below too if you do like this video. That certainly helps the channel out as well. So let's get into this. This is a movie that just dropped on Hulu, I think about 5 days ago as of this recording, but Hulu has already announced a sequel called Honeymoon Friends with the same main four cast members. And, you know, obviously they're very happy with people's response to this film. It's interesting, though, because on Rotten Tomatoes, it's a lot more middling. It's 60% for the critics, 48% for audiences, definitely in the middle there. But, you know, comedy, very, very subjective. And so what tickles the funny bone of one person may not quite do the trick for the next person. So I can see that working for some. Certainly. The main premise is that Lil Rel Howery plays this dude, Marcus Parker. Him and his girlfriend, Emily Conway, played by Yvonne Orji, who you may know from Insecure. She plays one of Issa Rae's buddies on that show. They are hoping to have this great vacation. Marcus has this amazing proposal planned, and as soon as they open the door to their suite, it has been flooded from the jacuzzi upstairs. And who is in the room upstairs? The old presidential suite. Well, it can only be John Cena, right? He plays Ron, and his wife, Kyla, played by Meredith Hagner, who I was unfamiliar with, but she's currently on the TV show Search Party, which I know you know, people do seem to, they don't talk about it much, but it's always pretty high on like critics lists and stuff. And it's in its, I think, 5th season. So obviously it's doing something right over there. But they decide to make things right and invite Marcus and his girlfriend to stay with them in that nice suite. And so the two couples bond over many things throughout the trip. They bond over some drug usage and drinking. They bond over, you know, some incidents that happen along the way. Some of them, you know, maybe a little crazier than the last. And then eventually they part ways and say, okay, goodbye. We'll see you later. But the movie still has at that point like 45 minutes left. So you know that Ron and Kyla are going to go ahead and just crash that wedding. It seems pretty obvious, so I don't think that's a spoiler. I don't watch trailers, but I have to imagine that was probably part of the trailer as well. But, all right, so this movie could really go either way for the viewer. I think these are the kind of movies that were sort of a dime a dozen for a good 15, 20 years between kind of the mid 90s and maybe like 2012, 2013, you know, and every week, every other week, there was a new one of these. Maybe not all of them were R-rated, but, you know, a lot of these sort of, you know, crazy comedies, you know, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. People that you don't necessarily want to associate yourself with. These are kind of my dad's least favorite movies. Like, What About Bob? Movies where you just, there's somebody you can't get rid of. That makes my dad so anxious. So I didn't grow up watching a lot of these movies, to be honest. But I kind of don't mind. I mean, I certainly have had people in my life I can't get rid of. So it's definitely sort of something that does seem relatable for me. John Cena, though, is great in this movie. He is a really, really adept at comedy. I think a lot more so than his counterpart, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. If we're talking about, you know, WWE wrestlers who became acting superstars, John Cena maybe isn't quite there yet on that Rock level, but I think he's getting there because just this summer alone, he was in F9, huge hit, you know, stupid movie, but huge hit. The Suicide Squad, great movie and big hit. And then now he's in this, and you know, these comedy movies that he's done, he did Blockers, he did Daddy's Home 2, right? And, Blockers I was, a bit mixed on, kind of like I am here with this movie. But the one undeniable sort of factor here is that John Cena is a funny, funny dude. And I like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, I really do, but I think he kind of is actually one note, He does a lot of the same things, and when he's paired with somebody else who's hilarious, like Kevin Hart, for example, in Central Intelligence, well, then the movie, is better for it, but it's not necessarily better because of him. And John Cena, I think, does fit that bill. I think he makes a lot of these movies way funnier than they could be. And Lil Rel is no slouch either. He's certainly been the comic relief in more dramatic films like Get Out, but he's also pretty funny in his own right. I wish his TV show was a little bit better. They had a one-season show on, I think it was Fox, called Rel. It was not very good. But, this pairing here is hilarious. Now, the women, they're fine. I will say, Meredith Hagner, that plays Kyla, she's great. She pairs very well with John Cena as well. So he's really working off of two sort of chemistry partners here. Yvonne Orji, she's okay. I think she doesn't really add or subtract anything. You could have probably thrown anybody into that role, and it's fine. Some of her family members are pretty funny, that get added into the mix later at the wedding. But the comedy here is definitely sort of things that we've all kind of seen before. I don't know that there's a ton of gut-busting scenes in this movie, as there is in a lot of the R-rated comedies that we see. But the chemistry is good enough that it sort of floats us by. When I think of sort of the death of the R-rated comedy about 5-6 years ago, there were so many movies that just were missing the mark completely. Like Sex Tape is one that I think of that like had this kind of flimsy premise, and then, the jokes didn't quite measure up. But with people that I really like, Jason Segel, Cameron Diaz, I love those guys, but didn't quite measure up. But this harkens back to, I feel like, more late 90s, early 2000s type movies, like Without a Paddle kind of sort of rings a bell with that, and not, I guess, maybe just because they're, in an exotic locale and they're on the water and stuff in part of this movie. But I think it sort of harkens back to that. But look, everybody's mileage is going to vary with this movie, because I think the humor here is very subjective, and I think the attraction to the John Cena persona is also going to be a huge factor here. For me, it works. For others, maybe not. I just wish I had more of a "this is hilarious" kind of response to this movie. There's some funny moments for sure, some funny interactions, but it's never to the point of gut busting, rolling on the floor, knee slapping. It's all sort of like, sort of chortles and titters. And does that make a great comedy movie? It does not. But I think it's enough to float this movie by. And look, I'm fine with a sequel. When I read this morning that was announced, I was like, okay, I can be on board with a sequel. I want to see more of, these couples and stuff. Couples Retreat, that's the other one I was thinking of during at least the first half of this movie, because the exotic locales, that was, a very middling movie. I think I gave that like a C or a C+. Great cast, Vince Vaughn, Jason Bateman, Kristen Bell, but it just didn't work for me, and I feel a little bit similarly about this movie. But I'm willing to give it a slightly higher grade than Couples Retreat. I think I gave that a C, so I'm going to leave this one with a C+, Vacation Friends, because I do think because of the dual locales, it kind of, gets to reinvent the story halfway through the movie. Not really reinvent, but give us at least a completely new setting in which to kind of play with. And then we get introduced to all of Emily's family members, and that sort of adds another layer too. So I will give this one a C+. I think your mileage will certainly vary. I wish it had more really hard jokes, and they're just pretty okay. In fact, I think this movie could have been PG-13. You take a couple of the curses out, I think it could have been PG-13, which is fine. I'm not one of these people who, if it's not R, it's not any good. I'd be fine with a PG-13 for this movie as well. But either way, that will do it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you back here next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.